Welcome to another Chef Knives to Go Quick Look product review. I'm Steve Gamache, and what we have this time is the Shibata Kashima R-2 Gyuto 210mm knife. And the way this is made is it's a thin blade, but it's got a center hard core cutting edge steel of R2 full stainless steel. Heat treats probably 62, maybe 63 Rockwell on that core steel as I move my machine around here. The construction has 3 layers. So on either side of that hard core steel, you've also got a soft stainless cladding, which wraps over the top on a highly polished spine, and then off to the other side. It's going to be hard for me to show this on camera, but there is a cladding line. The finish on this has some fairly, it's very smooth, but it's got some texture to the sanding, which is an aesthetic choice on their part. But there is a cladding line. It's just really hard to see. That's probably about the best I'm going to be able to do on it. But you can see it as a clad knife. The weight and dimensions will vary just a little bit from blade to blade, depending especially on the handle probably. But this particular one is 138 grams or 4.9 ounces, so it's quite light. The edge length is right about 214 or 8.4 inches on the edge, and the overall length is about 350 millimeters. I got about 2.0 millimeters of thickness on this particular one, all the way down pretty much until you hit the grind. And so what happens is when you get towards the last couple inches, you'll see they start to taper it down in thickness. It's called a distal taper, and then it gets pretty thin, pretty darn thin at the tip. So this is a high performance grind here. This is a laser style grind. It just has a little bit more meat towards the tip, but it thins out really well, and it also gets very, very thin at the edge. That's thin, folks. So I'd call this a laser for sure. Height is about 45.3 on this particular sample at the heel. And then the handle is octagonal. It is made out of bubinga for the center main part of the handle, and then black pacawood on the ferrule. Every handle is going to be a little different. This one I can kind of feel a little bit of a step between the two materials, but some handles it'll be perfectly smooth. We've got a good tight glue-up joint there where it tangles into the handle. And size, I got about 72, maybe 73 millimeters in circumference where the two materials meet. And then you've got a bit of a spot here. The neck's fairly thin, but you've got a bit of a spot here where the choil, the back of the blade, comes up into that neck, and then you've got a spot there for your finger for a pinch grip. Balance point is the blade is quite light, so with the handle material, it's not a super light handle, so that's going to bring it right about there, which is a tad behind a pinch grip, at least for me. So it's still pretty neutral, though. It's a very light blade, obviously. Let's see. This is on this side. The blade actually has a fair amount of stiffness to it, given how thin it is. It's surprisingly stiff, which is good. That gives you some confidence on the cutting board as I get my fingers all over everything here. So here is, in fact, I can't stand it. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. It's bugging me. Get my greasy fingers on it and get a couple fingerprints right before I show it. So there is what it kind of looks like, our beauty shot. So what they do is on the left side of the blade as you'd be using it, they have a laser etched kanji on there. They found that trying to do chiseled on it, the blade's so thin that chisel starts, compromising the look and getting into the other side of the blade because it's so thin. So they've gone to a laser etched kanji on these for consistency and integrity purposes on the blade. Here's the left side of the blade. Again, a fairly unique finish. So it's a lot of knives have a vertical finish like this, but this one they've chosen to kind of make a little heavier grain structure to it, yet put a smooth finish on it. So it's a bit unique, and which you would expect from them. They'd like to do things, their aesthetic everything's a choice on their aesthetic. So it's a really neat looking finish on this thing. They've got a nice polish and rounding on the spine, very high fit and finish on this, a lot of attention to detail, a high polish and relief and edge, contouring on the choil into the neck, so super comfortable. This is a full-on 7 out of 10, as you would expect from this maker. On the edge out of the box is very, very sharp. Let's look at the edge profile on our cutting board. So what you'll see is a little bit of flatter area towards the back half of the blade. It does roll into a bit of a, not a stop at the heel because you got a little back belly here, but some of that even could be my cutting board. I might need to sand this thing down again, but pretty close. A little bit more belly towards the tip. I'm getting in there before I start wanting to dig the tip in on a rock. So this thing will rock pretty nicely. Push-pull cuts, a little chopping towards the back, so fairly versatile profile. I also want to show you, these guys are so smart with the way they do things. I just want to show you, I wish every maker did this, but they put a nice little sheet in with the box, and it's just smart to do this. So one of the things, if you're showing someone who doesn't have a lot of experience with knives or doesn't have a bunch of knife skills, a lot of times they try to go just straight down through product and then they bang it on the cutting board. So just trying to get some movement of your knife, some front and back movement when you cut, trying to show people that. It makes such a difference, and so they're showing that here, and then they talk about not using it on certain types of boards and don't twist it and so on and so on. But they've got some really good care instructions here and a nice good illustration of the way to properly cut, which is to put a little front and back motion on it and make that knife do the work. So that's a smart little thing they put in there. So this is the Shibata Kashima R-2 Gyuto 210mm knife.